Welcome to Survey123, an introduction. My name is James Tedrick. I'm here with Jifeng Wang and Marika Vertzonis. We all work on the Survey123 team. What we're going to cover today is getting started with Survey123, being able to easily create a form, collect the data, and view the results. 1, 2, 3. So what Survey123 is about forms. A form is filled out when you're born. We all have to fill out a form every year for taxes. And there's a form probably filled out when you die. Makes forms about as eternal, or about as constant as everything else, right? Also, forms exist throughout our entire industries, right? We have requisition forms. We have, inspection forms. We have a lot of paper to fill out. And we can actually make this better. We can make this smarter. We can bring those paper forms and put them on your device. We can create those paper forms into smart forms. Forms where the user doesn't have to do quite everything for it. Forms where you can have all the forms you need when you go out in the field stored on the device ready to go. You don't have to worry about running out of a copy of it. So smart forms help us through a number of mechanisms. First off, we can reduce errors. We can have pick lists that constrain user choices. We can basically write directly from our application into a database, saving the time it takes to transcribe a form in paper. We can also be able to work with, do things like pre-calculate answers so that a user doesn't have to say today's date. The computer knows, the phone knows what today's date is, so let's ask it instead of the user. I know sometimes I think it's like tomorrow. For example, I'll be off because it's Friday, right? No, I can't. We can also do calculations. A really good example, really easy example is if we have the width of a plot and the height of the plot, we can get the area of the plot, right? We don't have to ask the user to whip out their TI-85 calculator if they have a TI-85 calculator. More than likely, they'd whip out their phone because it's got the calculator. So we'll let the phone do it. The other great aspect about this is because we're submitting it directly to a database, we get to see that data as it's coming in. We can actually get a near real-time view of the survey as people are submitting information. And then with Survey123, we georeference all of the surveys. Either you explicitly create a point within your survey that the user locates themselves at, or we can have a point that's hidden, and we'll just say just provide where the form was filled out. This lets us create some validations. For example, if we're doing an inspection of a fire hydrant, is it roughly where we expect the fire hydrant? Or is it roughly where we expect McDonald's? Right? Take a little while on that joke. Okay. So I wanted to cover a couple of organizations that have used Survey123 in different areas. This is the city of Atascadero's water district. Atascadero is a town a bit up the coast here on California. And they, like everybody else, very literally everybody else in America, when they have a chemical spill, they need to tell the EPA about it. And there's a form for that. In fact, there's a very complex form, a form that can differ depending on what type of chemical is spilled. Depending on where the spill is going. Is it going directly into the coast? Is it going into a stream? So they automated that form. They turned it into a digital form with Survey123 and gave it to their field crews. It cut the time it took to fill out that form for them, something on the order of 20 to 30 minutes. It's something about half the time it took to normally fill that form in. And they're also able to, through Survey123's reporting abilities, get the summary statistics that the EPA wants reported I believe it's every month. So they're able to very easily look that information up. They don't need to go and thumb through all of the previous and to manually sum it up. It's all right there for them in the database. Many utility companies are using Survey123 to inspect their facilities, and utilities as well as petroleum. Sorry, this is petroleum. So petroleum companies have pipelines, pumps, wellheads, a vast variety of infrastructure. Some of this is located out in the middle of nowhere, no cell signal, no ability for any other data transmission. So they can, with Survey123, pre-equip the forms that they're going to use for that inspection, drive out to their location, while offline, be able to do their inspection, and then come back from the field and post their information back to the database. Again, saving them time, saving them effort. Last August was a wet time for Louisiana. The Baton Rouge area received, I think they called it a 1,000-year flood on one of the, or 1,000-year rainfall, my apologies, on one of the maps in the back. American Red Cross reached out to our disaster response program, and together they created an assessment form using Survey123, where they gave it to volunteers who went out into the field and basically went house by house, looking at the houses, describing the damage, and saving it back. One of the really unique things I heard from one of the people working on this is that we essentially eliminated an entire position type with the response. The position of taking the forms, typing them in, and sending them to the database. It also essentially decreased the round trip time for the data to go from submission to analysis by a third or so, I believe. And finally, the City of San Francisco's Public Utilities Commission. This time last year, they were interested in Survey123 and started a pilot program. They worked with a field crew, went through a few iterations of designing a form, provided that form to the field crew to basically mark down the as-built conditions when they were, or as-built implementation of when they're putting pipes into the ground, right? Civil engineers have this nice fancy blueprint saying the pipe will go here, so-and-so, and it doesn't take into account that there's an old pipe from 1880 that no one knew is there. So they need to be able to document how that changed from the original plans. So they went out with, the field crews went out, and over the course this was about 6 months after they went through this piloting program with that team of 5 workers, saved $40,000 just in terms of the time it took to process those old paper forms versus the Survey123 forms, bringing the paper forms into the database, and then not only one database, but a couple of different business systems. So it really does help people. As I mentioned at the start, Survey123 is concerned with making the entire form workflow simple and available in 3 steps. The first is to ask the questions that you want to collect. Second, get answers. Go out to the field, collect your surveys. Third, make decisions. Understand the data that you're looking at, and then be able to work upon it. So, asking questions. With Survey123, we've got 2 great tools to begin creating your survey. The first is the Survey123 web page. At survey123.arcgis.com, you can log in and begin creating a survey instantly. It's a drag and drop experience, and it lets you do a beginning amount, let's say, of the smart form capability, being able to show or hide questions, for example, or provide a default answer. It's great for relatively straightforward, simple forms. We also have a desktop application, Survey123 Connect. This works with a spreadsheet program to have the spreadsheet specify the questions you're asking, as well as any of the other smart form capability, whether it's a pick list, whether it's a calculation, or another aspect, and be able to then render that spreadsheet into a form and then publish that into your ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS organization. So Survey123 works with ArcGIS. We create a form item when we publish a survey into ArcGIS. That's basically a new item in your account. We also create, by default, a feature service, so a table for you to store the data. We can also work with your existing feature services. So if you already have a survey or a data service you want to write a survey to, we can work with that. We work both with ArcGIS Online as well as ArcGIS Enterprise. So you can use it no matter what sort of ArcGIS implementation you have. Because these are items inside your ArcGIS Online or your ArcGIS organization, they work the same way as everything else. They can be shared the same way your web maps can be shared, the same way your story maps can be shared. So you can share your form and table with a group of people, with your entire organization, or you can share it publicly so that it doesn't require login for access. We find that sharing publicly really beneficial when we're looking at a survey for crowdsourcing or citizen science, where you want the public to engage. In fact, the ArcGIS Hub group is using Survey123 surveys as part of that public engagement. We can also distinguish the role in which people can can access the survey, whether they're field workers submitting data or stakeholders viewing the results. Right now, this is an ArcGIS Online only capability. This will be coming with the ArcGIS Enterprise at 10.6. When we create a survey, it's just like creating a map or creating an application. There are some guidelines. First off, understanding what questions, what data do you need to collect? Which of that data is optional? Which of that data is required? Setting those settings into the survey. Creating validation rules. If you're asking for an email address, you may want to make sure it's got an @ symbol somewhere in there. If we're talking about counting the number of kids in a classroom, we may want to make sure that we're talking about a classroom that larger than 10 kids, but say less than 60. We also can control the layout of our form in Survey123. We can order the questions. We can group questions together so that they can be hidden or shown collectively. We can also brand it. We can use your survey's color, your organization's brand and colors and imagery within the survey as well. And I guess a final aspect I skipped over, but is who is the target audience and what type of survey will they be collecting? Survey123 can have a survey published either via the website you can collect survey data either via the web or via the Survey123 field application. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's also influenced by the type of audience you're working with. If you're talking about a crowdsourcing survey, you probably want to do a web application unless there's a good reason for it to be offline or otherwise on a device. Because most people don't want to download an extra application just for your survey. Otherwise, if you are going offline, you definitely want that to be on your device so that you don't have to rely on a web connection to fill out and submit that survey data. So with that, I'm going to transfer over to Marika, who's going to create a survey for us.
Let's go for the mic.
Just sing out, Louise. Yay, some people get that.
Hello? 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 Hello?
And I just wanted to awkwardly hold it in front of you.
Oh no, it's a plenary all over again. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. All right, so the survey we're going to create, when the machine wakes up. Okay. Hands up everybody who's already filled in the survey that James showed you the QR code. Excellent. So you have seen the survey I'm about to create. Everybody else, you will have an opportunity to fill that in when I'm finished. So I'm going to demonstrate how to create that survey from within the Survey123 website. As James said, there's two ways to author surveys, one in the web and one on the desktop. We'll create this one on the web and we'll actually modify it in the desktop. So once you've signed into the website, you have the option right up here to create a new survey. And I will choose to use the web designer and give it a name. Tick. Workshop. UC. And create. Right now it's generating the files that are required for the form component of the survey. And thankfully the internet's a little bit faster today than it was yesterday. So who can remember what the first question was in the survey? What did I ask? No? Yeah, do you have experience with feature services? And you saw that I limited the answers that you could give me. You could only say yes or no. So that type of question is a single choice question. So to create that on my survey, which is on the left-hand side, I simply click it and it appears. Now I can tailor how the question is worded. Do you have experience with feature services? And I can define the choices that you can make, yes and no. We don't need a third choice in this case because you're not allowed to be indecisive. Oops, wrong one. Here we go. So there's our first question. Okay, we'll go back and add our second question, our single choice. And I think this one was, do you have experience in Survey123? Do you have experience with Survey123? Great. Yes. No. No, maybe. All right, the next question was of a different type. It was a rating. We wanted you to rate your experience with Survey123. Oh, and you can see I've accidentally added an extra one there. So the next type of question I want to use is this rating question. When I add that to my survey, you'll see I've got a few different options over here on the right. Obviously the label is still the same. How would you evaluate your experience with Survey123? Now I have a choice. I can either use an icon, but if you want to be a little bit more specific about the type of choices a user have, in my case I'm going to use a label. So as soon as I change label, you can see on the left hand side that this graphic was created for me. But I would like to change the labels that are used. So I think in our example we had no experience, beginner, intermediate, don't mind my spelling, there we go, advanced, and go the whole hog, and all the experiences. All right, now looking at the question before this, should I be showing this question all the time? No? When do I want to show it? Right, so this is where I get to set a rule on the previous question, because I really only want to see the experience question if they answered yes. So if I click set rule, I get to choose, if the user chooses yes, only then show this question. So straight away we've already put a little bit of automation in our survey. I'll add the next question. Oh, the next one was about other products. Excellent. So in this case, you've all used lots of products, so a single choice is no good to us. In this case, we want a multiple choice. So our multiple choice question, and put it in a poor location. I can drag it down to where I'd like to have it. And in this case, I will ask, what other Esri field apps have you used? And this is where we can list them out. Collector, Explorer, Workforce. We've got more than 3, that's okay, we can add some more. Operations, Dashboard. Who did I miss?
Navigator.
Thank you. Navigator. All right, and in this case I'm going to choose Other, because I want to show you how the other response is displayed in the analysis. And a small request, if you haven't filled in the survey yet and you're about to, please put something in other. Hint, hint, ArcGIS for Windows Mobile, Pro, ArcPad, any of those, because I want to be able to show you how that result is displayed. So please add another. All right, and of course we're Esri, so the very last question needs to be a geopoint. So let's add a geopoint at the end of the survey and ask, where are you from? Cool. All right, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to save it and preview the survey. So before you publish it to your users to try it out, you do get the opportunity to see what it's going to look like online. So we have our yes/no questions. Do you have experience with Survey123? If you say no, nothing changes, but if you say yes, our rating question appears. We can choose more than one of our field apps, and you get a location question. So that looks pretty good. At this point, I would hit publish. For those people, would you be able to,
Yep.
For those people that haven't filled in their survey, please, I'll give you a moment to fill it in. If you haven't done a scan yet, please take a scan. I'll also show you very quickly how this survey would look inside the field app. Now, the field app most obviously is available on iOS and Android, and that's where a lot of people use it. But the field app is actually also available on Windows. So after you take the screenshot there, I'll show you what this form would look like, or your form, the one that you're filling in Windows. Busily typing, I can see the heads down. All right, so should we flick back? Does anyone still need to take a screenshot? No? All right, what I want to show you, if I just minimise that there. This app here is the field app, exactly the same as what is on your Android or iOS device. And this is the survey that you're all filling in. So you can see what you've got on your device has the same questions and the same appearance that you have on your device. So at this point, since you've all filled in the survey and you're looking at it on the screen here, there are two things that are different between the survey I built and the survey you filled in. What were the two things? Sorry? Icons, yes, we have icons in this survey, and a little bit more apparent in yours, but I'll give you a hot tip here. There was one other difference. The survey that you filled in is actually multilingual. So if you switch to Spanish, you should see the questions and options available in Spanish, and if you switch to Chinese, you should see the same survey in Chinese. So I'll show you how those two types of those two features are actually performed in Survey123 Connect. So let's start with the icons. Don't need that. So first I showed you the field app on my desktop. Now I'm showing you Survey123 Connect. And I'll just refresh it to make sure that I get the survey that I just created, the one that was called Tech Workshop. So I started editing or creating this in the web. Now I'm going to continue editing it in Connect. I've downloaded it to my device, and again, you get a preview of what the survey looks like. And you can see in this one, I don't have the icons. To add the images, we need to do two things. We need to copy the files to this project and then reference them in the source spreadsheet for the survey. So the first thing I'll do is I'll open the location where this form is saved. That's using this folder browser. And you can see in here, these are all the files that are used to document the survey. And what I actually need to do is copy all those images into this media folder. So if I just move that over to one side and find my source images. Okay, I'll do it another way. Oh, here we go. Oh, too fast. Desktop, UC, images, here are all my icons. I'll copy those and deposit them into my survey folder. That was step one. And the second part is to actually reference them in my spreadsheet. And to launch the spreadsheet for this survey, I'll use this very first tool on the toolbar. The most important columns, I suppose, in the spreadsheet are these very first three. These are the key elements that you need to create a survey. You'll see there's a whole lot more columns over to the right, and this is where you define that extra validation, calculations, appearances. If you are interested or want to learn more about this, I recommend that you come to the advanced workshop. The content of that advanced workshop is really going to dive into how to make best use of those columns. Right now, the columns I'll point out to you is obviously the first one, the type. This is the type of question, whether it's a date, a text, an integer type of question. The name field is a unique identifier for every question, and in ArcGIS speak, this is what would become the field name in your feature service or related table. And then the label is how it appears on your form. So these three here are the key parts of the survey. Now our field apps question was the one which is of a select multiple type. Now where is the contents of that list? They are stored in this choices tab. So our list was called multiple list 3. If I go to choices and find multiple list 3, that was the content of my pick list. And you can see I have one more column here called image. And if I add the file name of the images that I added to the media folder and spell them right, explore. I should have had a copy and paste ready for this. PNG, operations dashboard. Oop. Why didn't anybody pick me up on that? Navigator.png. And there isn't one for other. Now when I hit save and go back to connect, just need to refresh my survey. I should now get my images. Cool. Customization done. Now for the second one, the second difference was the languages. I won't add them here, but what I'll do is I'll show you the source of this one. So if we go back to my surveys, and here is our original survey, I'd like to show you what the spreadsheet looks like. So here you can see that I've actually got the label column duplicated, one for each language. So in my case, the default language was English, but I also had available Spanish and Chinese. You can nominate which language is going to be the default. It doesn't have to be English. And you're also not limited to the 33 languages that ArcGIS is translated into. You can actually use any language that has a language, ISO language code. And that is how you saw, if you may have seen in the plenary, the Taylor Shellfish Company had their survey translated in, I think it was Spanish and Khmer. Is that right? Khmer is not a ArcGIS language. However, they were able to do their own translation right here in their spreadsheet. So there's three places where you would insert your translations. One for the labels of the questions. Also in the label of the choice list, the pick lists. But also you need to nominate it for images, because you might actually have a completely different image with each language, because your image might contain some text. That's why you have the ability to define, in my case I've used the same image in each three cases, but you might have a different image in each language. Anything else? No, I think that's good. Switch. Yes, switch, done.
Thanks, Marika. So we've created our survey, we've asked our questions. Marika's also begun to show us how we can get our answers. With Survey123, as I mentioned a little bit before, we have multiple ways of collecting that survey data. We can make our survey form available via a web page so that it can be filled in, basically on any computer. We can also create we can also have that Survey123 field application on iOS, on Android, Windows Phone, as well as Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we can go out in the field, stay disconnected, and get that information as well. There are a few minor differences between the two in terms of form support. Notably, with the mobile application, we can not only add data, but we can edit existing features that you may have. So we can do an update, whereas right now with the web, we can only add information. Aside from that, they're fairly equivalent in terms of their capabilities. Again, with private surveys, with surveys that have been shared to the group or to the organization, we're using the named user. So you're challenged when you try to access that survey, right? You need to sign in. That's using your organization's named user to sign in. It also provides us editor tracking capabilities. We're able to see who created that survey without you needing to do any additional configuration in your form. With public surveys, they are shared to everyone, and we literally mean what we say when we say that. They are shared to everyone. Anybody who has an access to the link of the survey could fill in your survey. Now, admittedly, we're the only ones who provide you links to the survey. They're not indexed in Google or anything. But if you send it via an email, it can be sent to another person, another person, another person down the chain. This may be what you want. This is what works well. This is why crowdsourcing works well. People get excited filling out, reporting back their information and force all their friends to do it too. But it's a consideration. So we've collected data. We're now ready to make our decisions. Survey123's website has a series of initial analytic capabilities. For each of your questions, you can get a chart or map rendering of the answers. We can also share this report with other people. So you can, as I mentioned, we have the ability to share the analysis or share the data of the survey for analysis. We also have access to the individual survey responses, both in the map view and in table view. You can also download the survey data or put it in there just ArcGIS map viewer inside your online or enterprise installation. And we like that because the Survey123 is collecting data and storing it in a feature layer. This is the same feature layers you use all the time within ArcGIS Online or your ArcGIS Enterprise installation. What's more, these feature layers authored by Survey123 can work with the other applications. You can analyze the data in Insights. You can create a editing application, revision application using Web App Builder, or bring it in Pro to edit it further. We can bring it into Operations Dashboard to get that real-time understanding of the progress of the survey. And once it's complete, and if the survey is complete, we can share the results in a story map to let people know what happened, how successful it was. So to highlight this, Jifang will actually show the results of the survey you all filled out.
So as another user, I will sign a different user from Marika's account, so I can play the stakeholder role of the survey to view the results. We can find the survey. It's here. So you can see there are totally 170 records here. Well, that's amazing job. Yeah.
That was nearly as many records as we had yesterday in a much bigger room. So
yeah.
Great.
Actually, you can see this one. If I change the date range to last 7 days, you can see that. So this is actually we submit records today in this room. So James just lied to you, but this is very important. So
yeah. Well, but we had 90 yesterday, 79.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and also if we are using a survey that, well, apparently there are some named user has already submitted records to date, so we can see the submitted trends of each user in the overview page. Yeah, and we have also the analyze page here. In this page, we can have auto-generated aggregated report for your survey. So if I want to analyze the results from today's survey, I can just select today. So we can see there are only 80 records here. So most of us apparently have experience of the feature surveys, and yeah. So we are also we're almost new to the Survey123, and also we can, yeah, there are 4 people with immediate experience, and we can see which other products of Esri Field Apps you have used for. Well, ArcPath is the number 1. Yeah, we got 6 users here. Yeah. That's the interesting part of the survey results. And also we can just print these aggregate reports as a PDF report, so you can integrate that into your Word document or story map. And in the data page, we can analyze the raw data of the survey. As James mentioned, all the data submitted to the survey are stored in the feature surveys hosted in ArcGIS Online. So we can just browse each record of the survey. And if we want, we can click a single one so we can see an individual response or the drill down report of the survey. Yep. And also we can have the option to print this drill down as a PDF report. And as James mentioned, the data are actually stored in the feature surveys, so any ArcGIS apps that utilize the feature surveys could consume this data immediately, such as we can open the data in the map viewer directly, so we can do further analysis or mapping visualization. Oh, need to sign again. Mm-hmm. Based on the web map, we just need to click again. Yep, so we can just utilize this web map as a start point of a story map or a web builder app. Yep.
Thanks, Jifang. So just taking a look at our results from here. Marika, when did the Smiley edition of ArcPad get released?
You need to have been using it for a long time. So.
Okay. It also highlights some of the aspects of why we like smart forms. Here we have ArcPad. Here we have ArcPad. ArcPad. iPad? So that's why we like things like pick lists and designated. It helps us focus those answers to reduce this sort of clutter. Admittedly, right now, because we already have the existing products, we're reducing it even a bit further because it makes sure that we're all spelling Explorer and Navigator and Dashboard correctly. So just a few things to close on. We'll be happy to take questions after that. So after that, we're able to, with Survey123, ask your questions, get your answers, and make your decisions. A couple of things. One, all of this can be accessed at the Survey123 webpage, survey123.arcgis.com. There you'll also be able to create a form, just as Marika did, view the results as Jifang did. Also, get access to our documentation, which will guide you through the process of doing that. We have a series of sessions tomorrow. So if you want more, we have advanced topics to wake you up with, as well as taking your maps offline so that we can support those offline workflows. And then finally, extending Survey123. Survey123 is available as an open source template within App Studio. So if there's something that we're not doing in the application, you can take it, create your own, and publish it to your own app store, or publish it to the app stores as well. We have a very vibrant community in GeoNet. We are all on there fairly often. And so if you have a question about Survey123, how do you do something, please put it on GeoNet. If it's in the American time zones during the business day, probably I'll be the one answering it. If it's a bit after, Jifang or Marika perhaps. On that GeoNet community, we also have a blog. So every time Survey123 is released, we provide a What's New blog there. And we also do a deep dive blog on particular topics, such as this one, how barcodes work within Survey123. So again, we're trying to make as many resources available to you to get started and be successful. And then also in terms of getting started, we have a series of tutorial videos inside the ArcGIS YouTube channel in our playlist. So you're able to go there and watch how you can get started with form creation in general or particular functions. Also on Twitter, where we'll provide a tip of the day. So a nice little bit of information. And then also you can share your stories to us, and we'll share them out to everyone else. Finally, I have been asked by the Esri UC people to fill out the non-Survey123 survey about our session. We will work on this next year. There will be words. So please do. Your feedback is vital for us to make this a better session next year. Thank you very much. I would be happy to take questions.
About the updating of existing features, limited to just points or other geometry?
So the question is limiting update existing feature updates. That's currently limited to just points. Yes.
Okay, and just simple symbology on those points?
So we're not touching the symbology at all. It's all about the attributes for us. We don't do any interaction with the symbology. So like in Collector, you do the feature templates. We don't do that. We use the Excel form to specify the defaults, which tend to translate into symbology in Collector.
Is there any plans in the future?
We don't have any plans now. We've been hearing a couple of requests through the user forum, but with Survey123, and this gets to sort of how we're different from Collector, we're really focused on the form, the attribute side of the experience. We're less focused on the map side.
In the map that comes with the form, I don't know if that's GeoPoint, I forget what
The point question, yes.
well, so just in the map, and it shows the coordinates, can we have that show addresses at all?
So the question is about showing address lookup or addresses on that. That's another enhancement that we've been hearing. You do see that that's possible with the web form, and that's an enhancement we've been hearing, and we're planning to be working on it and have that released sometime before the end of the year.
Okay, so this year.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, I have another question, I'm sorry.
Can we just to
Yeah,
share?
exactly.
Thanks.
Sorry, two questions. Is location automatically gathered when they fill out a survey and out, and then are all the fields automatically required?
So the first question is location filled in automatically. The answer is yes, and that's occurring through whatever location provider the phone or device has access to. So by default, generally like phones work off of a mixture of Wi-Fi lookup, cell tower lookup, and GPS. You can constrain the accuracy. So cell tower lookup is normally good to a kilometer. So if you needed to get GPS signals, you can say, I want this within 10 meters, and that'll record that. On making every question required, that is not by default. You can certainly make every question required in your form. Yep.
You said that for the private surveys that a license was required for every user. Is that just like the ArcGIS Online account? Or?
So for private surveys, a named user in your ArcGIS organization, whether it's ArcGIS Online or Portal, is required to sign in and access the survey.
You showed your user responses in your survey, dots on the map. Is that a geocoding service that uses your credits in your ArcGIS Online account that's associated with this?
So the points on the map were determined by the answer in the question.
Right.
We're not using any geocoding in that sense that would require credit usage at all within Survey123.
Okay. And the follow-up with that, is there any conflict between enabled tracking feature that's put out by Location123 and any other app that you're running concurrently? Like if you're using Workforce and you have a track for...
So so the question is, if Workforce is on, if Collector's transmitting your location in Survey123, is there any conflict? No, that's all handled by the operating system essentially. So back this way, yeah.
Can you either constrain the map to say only collect data within this boundary, and or can you show the boundaries in the map?
So the answer is constraining the map to, say, the county that you're in or the state that you're in. We do not have that capability. We do have some capability to do a constraint check in terms of the value that's being submitted, whether that's a valid value or not. But it's not extremely extensive. Essentially, you could define a box of latitude and longitude for that. With regards to showing the boundary, right now we don't, aside from creating a tile package and having that boundary displayed in the tile package for offline use, we don't have a capability for that at this time.
But you can do it with offline.
You can, because with offline, you're creating you're going to create the map for them that they'll see. If that okay.
Is there a way to export the individual survey results to Excel sheets and stuff like that?
So the question is there a way to export the individual survey results? What can be done is you can, as Jifeng showed, access the table and download a CSV file. You can filter on date right now, and you can't select an individual one per se, I think, for download. Yeah, we don't have that. That could be done through a couple other tools like Pro or ArcMap in terms of select and then export, because this is just a feature layer that exists, that works with those same selection and geoprocessing tools. And in the back.
Can you strip a field from appearing in the GIS layer? For example, if you ask someone's name as the first question, but can't have PII on your new server?
So the answer is, if I have a survey, or the question is I have a survey, it's collecting like PII, and you want to hide a field. That can be done right now through when you share it out to another application, because you can you can specify which fields are shown or hidden. If you're extremely concerned about this, there are additional ways to create what are called feature service views. That's what we use to create that read-only. That view can specify which fields are shown in that. So if they are accessing it via that endpoint, they would never see that. It's a little bit like in ArcMap, if people are familiar, when they publish out a service, you can check which fields are displayed. And if you check off shape, you realize that you've made a big issue because you can't do anything with it. So yes, there are ways to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In the advanced session tomorrow, will you talk about how to apply this to an existing feature service that you have?
So the question is, will we talk about working with existing feature services? I haven't seen the agenda.
Come down to the island.
Yeah, you'd have to probably come down to the island. So I did talk about this in the demo theater I just did. There probably will be some mention or question of it at the advanced. I just haven't seen the agenda for that, and I'm not presenting at that one. My apologies. But we're very happy to show you this downstairs at our apps island in the back back right of the area.
Where you had context-sensitive answer,
Mm-hmm.
where you said no, it doesn't show up, would it automatically populate that unseen field with none?
So the question is, when we have a field that's hidden, what is sort of sent? We send a null value. When a field is hidden, we presume that question should not have been asked in that survey instance, and so there is no valid value. It's a null value in that sense, as opposed to none, which is an affirmation that there is zero. If that makes sense, right? There's a slight difference between saying zero is your answer and not giving an answer, and that's what we're distinguishing on. Have I exhausted all the questions? One in the back.
Probably won't have to repeat it. In the reporting function, at the end, you have the results. In the report, can you display a map?
So, in
addition to the charts, graphs, and the summary statistics, you also have a map space.
So we can display, one of the options in terms of the charts is a map distribution of the points and their answers in that sense. The other side of that is that's really what the data tab is about in terms of that. In the individual response, in the printing of that individual response, we do include a map there. And so maybe I'm missing exactly what you're thinking about in terms of that map, but we do have map points within all of that. If that makes sense. If you can, yeah, maybe I'm just what? Yeah, you can please come to the island if I'm not quite hitting what you're asking.
I think I saw in another demo where you had collector and then there was like open in Survey123 and then you used the apps
Yes.
together.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits of that and why would you do that?
So one of the aspects of Survey123 is we integrate with the other applications, such as Workforce, such as Collector. We see, and in terms of the particular either Collector or Explorer, we find both of these fill the role equally. We find that in some situations having a browsing map experience with additional data overlaid, and then opening the Survey123 is something that they want in terms of understanding where they're collecting and then collecting. And right now, Survey123's map capabilities are much more limited. So that's the sort of thing is where if you're needing someone to browse around, understand, see the map around before collection, that is the case that we see those integrations. That is a more straightforward integration is with Workforce. Workforce is designed to tell somebody what they're going to do. Survey123 is one of the things that they are going to do. So in Workforce, once they start an assignment, there's a button they click to say, grab this, start the survey at this location, and that will open Survey123. I think there were some questions over this way. Yep.
So there may be connecting dots that should not be connected. But in the top, at one point, you opened up a spreadsheet that showed us the design behind the form. So the responses, and they had different worksheets within that file. Is that the same file where the actual responses to the form show up? Or where's the data stored?
So the spreadsheet that you saw is basically the authoring document for the survey. The responses are stored in a feature layer that is either inside your ArcGIS Online organization as a hosted service, or it's connected to an ArcGIS server and either stored in a data store, which is sort of a built-in data storage area, or connected directly to an enterprise geodatabase. So the point of the data is that the data goes directly back to a database that you're using and can integrate it with other data.
Do you have to have a login to be able to collect data on a map?
So do you have to have a login to collect data on the map? If you as a survey author share the form out publicly, you do not require a login.
Well, where does the data, it's still stored in the same spot on that map?
It's still stored, yeah.
So say I wanted to give this to just a random person and say, hey, can you go collect all the homeless people of this city, whatever?
Yeah.
Can they just click on the link and or find that, like how do they find the map that you're trying to collect on so that all that
Sure.
data is in one place?
So let me go back to here just to maybe highlight this. So within Survey123, let me go to a survey that I own so I can show this. Let's go here to this. This is, instead of homeless people, this is looking towards basically a bike share inspection, a bike rack inspection. And so I've chosen to share this to everyone. Down here, we have a link for you to access that survey. And so in this case, this has been pre-built to work in the field in the mobile application. So we click there, Survey123 will load up, and then prompt us to open up the Survey123 app and fill in.
Always give you the choice of opening in browser, and because I tried it recently, and it would directly go to the app.
So right now, right. So right now, if a form was built in Survey123 connect, and the link that you see here will be only for opening the app. With our next release, you'll see the option to open the browser. One of the things that we're bringing out with our next release is an enhanced web form. You may have actually seen it already because we've had it in essentially open beta since December that supports the Survey123 Connect authored forms. So this will change to have that option if you've only seen the option to open in the app.
I've seen both, but the last time I did it only went.
If you author on the web, you have the choice of both. If you author in Connect at the moment, you only have the choice of one. So that's why you may have seen it in some occasions.
Is there an easier way, like instead of having to share that entire link and maybe email it to everybody, can you shorten that link to be whatever, like an alias kind of, so that it's easy to type in? And
you mean something like a bit.ly link?
Yeah, how do we do that?
Go to bit.ly and.
I've never done it.
Okay, yeah, no, bit.ly is just a general service for you to do that, so you can copy, paste, and get a shorter link. The other thing that we can obviously do, which most people I think were using, was the QR code. So.
Can you show real quick where you put the logic in when you're building a form?
Sure. So there's a couple of different aspects of that. Do you want to drive or?
Come on over here.
Yeah, let's switch over to. So yeah, there are a couple of different places that have basically what we call smart form logic points. Marika get herself up and running, and then she can...
So this is the same survey we were looking at earlier on. We've got our questions here. The setting of the rule of only showing the rating question when the answer was yes to having experience with Survey123 is defined over here in this relevant column. So in this case, the experience level question is only relevant when the text yes is returned for the question type experience survey. So this is the representation of that selection that I made in the website. So to make one question relevant upon another, you would use an expression like this. To be sure of the syntax of this, please refer to the documentation. Another common area. Your question was more about validation, I suppose. So another example of validation might be, I don't know if there's another one I can add into this survey.
Yeah. For validation, email address. And,
oh, yeah.
And you can get that from the documentation.
At this point, I'm going to open the documentation and show you that instead. Can you guess what I work on? Once you start getting to this point with Survey123, there is one section which is basically the gospel, and that is the XLS form section. Come here and all of your XLS form dreams, hopefully, will be resolved. And the key areas really are these relevant expressions. So is the question relevant? This is the example that I just showed you there, but you can also have more of a mathematical response, yes?
So can you do that just in the web designer?
No.
Oh.
For this you would need to be in Connect, yes, because basically you have to edit the Excel spreadsheet. The one expression that is in the web designer is the one that I showed you, which effectively generates this on your behalf. And they can get far more complicated by using some mathematical functions as well. Regex, the world is your oyster. You can define all sorts of things with regex, and there's a whole lot of information out there on the web. This is the example that James said about validating something that might need to be an email address. If you go to the formula page, you can see they can start getting a little bit complicated. This is a regex expression for an email address. Another classic is a telephone number. Of course, depending on what country you live in, your telephone number format is slightly different. I think our example, we've got an example here for a US phone number. In fact, I think there's a whole table of them.
There's an input mask for...
Was it? Input mask. As you can see, there's a lot of help here. So please, there's very specific questions that you have, I'm sure are here, and if they're not, tell us, and they will be.
Additional parts of the smart form calculation is that there's an actual calculation column. That's used for the pre-computation, if you're computing an answer based on previous answers. And the constraint column was what we were talking about with regards to verifying whether whether an answer meets the requirement. That's involved with the regular expression in terms of determining whether an email address is actually an email address. So yeah, it's spread across different components. Depending on what type of function you're talking about, there's a slightly different aspect to how that's basically authored as part of that smart form. Yeah. Where does the form live? So there's a couple places that the form will live. First off, it will be on your computer as you author it, if you're authoring with Survey123 Connect. Second, the form will live as an item inside of your ArcGIS Online organization or your ArcGIS Enterprise installation. And that's really the canonical copy. You can then, from that copy, download it onto any other computer to, either reauthor or onto your devices to then display.
Okay, so when I designed the form, it lives on my computer, and so can anybody in my organization go up and modify it by going up to?
So the question is, can anybody modify it once they do that? No, you own the item, and you would control the permissions to it.
Okay. In ArcGIS.
In your either your online org or your portal, yeah.
So if you have a look on the screen, this is how my survey is actually represented in ArcGIS Online. You can see the form itself is one item, and the feature layers are also represented. So that you can share this in the same way as you share other items in ArcGIS Online.
If you manage to delete that form from your computer on which you created it, does it delete or somehow?
So there's two possible answers on that. Sorry, both. So there is a deliberate delete action from Survey123 Connect that would delete it both on your computer and in online. If you were just mucking around or your computer crashed, you could recover it by downloading it from online and then have the copy back on your computer.
If I shared my form to the public and multiple people are using it, is there any sort of security? Are they only each person on their device only able to see the points they collected, or can they see any of the points?
So with Survey123, they would only see the points they collect. Both from the fact that we don't query for everyone else's points within Survey123, and also...
Well, kinda.
Well,
by default.
The inbox, but we're not...
So the clear message is, in the web, absolutely, they do not see each other's points. If that is a workflow that you require, it can be done, but it's a very deliberate action.
And also, I was going to point out that that there are settings that are available for the layers, which are where the data gets stored, that restrict who can see what as well. And we use some of those settings to provide that restriction as well.
How do you connect?
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out.
How do you connect to SBE data or like the data of SBE data?
So the question is, how can we connect an SDE data? So there's a couple of different answers. The most direct connection is to author your form based on an existing feature service that is connected to your enterprise geodatabase. The secondary answer is, when you publish a survey, it exists within either your hosted features in online or your hosted features in your enterprise data store, in the enterprise data store by default. We have a script to migrate that. We have a script that was posted as a blog post to suck that out of that online environment and put it into your database. There's a few flaws with it. I'm the script author, so I can say that. But those are the two options. Generally, we would normally recommend, if it's possible, to do the direct connection if that works with your workflow, just because that simplifies the entire mechanism. In back, ma'am, or no?
No, good.
Okay.
Can a form or a survey be built off a relationship class so multiple visits can be recorded?
So can a survey be built off of a relationship class? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we actually use relationship classes in some parts of the form where we create what we call repeats. So a repeated section of questions.
Oh, okay.
That comes out as a related table.
Yeah, I was thinking of multiple visits.
Absolutely. Really good examples of that actually is the local government solution has a water station and water station history, and we actually demonstrate that as working with that form, working with that data all the time. Yeah. No worries. No one else is asking questions.
So if I want to say, I want my form to go out to probably 70 to 100 people, but not all the public, is there a way that you think I can protect it from just anybody going out and collecting data and it kind of messing up
Currently, the best way to do that is to use named users. If you are looking at that, actually I would say don't be sort of daunted. Talk to your account manager about that. This is for this sort of survey type. I mean, you brought up the homeless, right? Another example that we had was Aurora, Colorado, actually used a homeless survey using Survey123. We now have a template survey available based on that you can access through Survey123 Collect. You just go to the Add New from Samples, and it's there. We're interested in those workflows, so bring it up. See if we can do something that can work for you in that context. The other aspect of this is you may also want to talk to the ArcGIS Hub team about because they're all about community engagement, and they're finding ways to expose and make the engagement accessible to a large audience. So we hear these workflows, we hear people shriek or like, the named user. We're trying to make it work in these contexts.
These are the two templates that James was referring to.
Can we see these templates?
Sure.
Is this available online if I want to get on and look?
Yeah.
Two fish ones.
Yes.
That I was curious about.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? I don't want to force you to sit down while it's still nice outside. If you have any other questions, we're going to be down at the ArcGIS Apps booth for the rest of today, as well as the half day tomorrow that we all have. So thank you. Look forward to your questions.